Hey everybody, Coach Keith Kepner here. We're going to talk about the fact that you need 5 ways to defend every punch. And we're going to go over that. Why do I say you need 5 ways to defend every punch? Because if you have only one way to defend a move, that can work. And it can work most of the time, especially if it's a very optimal way to defend. But as you climb up levels or go against different people, they will exploit or can exploit your one answer to their challenge. And if you don't have an answer to that challenge, well, then you're up that proverbial creek without a paddle. So that's what we're going to get into today. Why should you listen to me? Not only have I boxed in the United States and in Mexico, I was mentored by my father, who's a professional boxing coach for decades, and he was mentored by Chuck Bodak, who worked with over 50 world champions and was the amateur or Olympic coach for Muhammad Ali. I've also been coaching for about 15 years now and taking guys from complete zero, never putting on a pair of gloves before, and taking them to elite levels. All right, so I can help you do the same in this video. So let's get into it, guys. Now, we're going to go over these punches, talk about these concepts, and remember it's that when we talk about defense and defending punches, that it's not so much about always being perfect. At the end of the day, if we don't get hit, that is what is perfection in the sport of boxing. And it's easy to lose sight of that. I've done that before as a coach before and as a boxer, where you try to do certain moves, quote unquote, correct or technically correct, or what you think is technically correct. But at the end of the day, the result is what matters. We have seen, this is why it's called martial arts, because we have seen plenty of guys and gals who do things that are not necessarily exactly textbook or exactly how one person's textbook shows it. And it doesn't really matter. But there are also times where you see somebody have massive success for a very long time, but there's little holes in the game, and those little holes get exploited. And if you've been around boxing long enough, you can see some of these things and get an idea for what the future might hold for someone. Again, it's no promises that, hey, if you do this certain move, you're going to get knocked out or anything like that. Anyone tells you anything like that is being way too general. It's important stuff to watch out for. And to be clear, for each one of these punches, there's more ways to defend the punch than I'm going to list here. But I'm going to go over my top ways that I coach people to do it, as well as add in some extra ones there that are things that I recommend you should experiment with. All right. So first, let's talk about the most important punch in boxing. If you don't know this already, you might be in trouble, unless you're just totally starting out from zero, which is good you're watching this, because that's going to get you to the level faster than your peers. The jab. All right, so we're going to talk about that jab. What is a jab? It's a straight lead hand from any stance you got, but we're talking about typically same stance fighters right now. I might touch on some nuances with opposite stance opponents. All right, first, number one, end all be all, the basic that I teach first day on how to stop a jab is to catch the jab. Smallest movement possible, least amount of commitment, allows you to still jab as you defend your opponent's jab. Think about it. If you're trying to use your lead hand to stop someone's jab and you're of the same stance, you're crossing over to try to stop that shot, and it can be a lot of challenge. By the way, this entire video, you can just listen to the audio if you want to, or enjoy the visual immersion that you experience by watching it. But I make this stuff, guys, so that you can go about your day, go about your training, maybe go on a long run and listen to this and still be increasing your boxing IQ. All right? The catch. Flip of the wrist, catching that jab right in front of your face. The hand is about 2 inches off the face, and that allows to make sure that you don't get your head controlled and move your head as they punch. If you have the hand on your face or on your chin as you catch a jab, it's going to move your head still and control you, right? And make it hard to counter as well. So that catch, number one, very small movement, very important movement. Now, are there counters for it? Absolutely. But it is a foundational piece. Look at any boxing coach from 1930 to 1990. That is, in my opinion, the marker of a good coach. And I'll list one off for you. Emmanuel Stewart. Ever heard of him? If you've been around boxing, you have. If you don't, look him up. He teaches definitely to catch that shot. All right. So anyway, because believe it or not, I've heard people debate this stuff with me. Slip inside. We're going to slip inside on the jab. Now, you can also, we're going to talk about other slips, but slipping inside. That's a lot of times a way that people say don't slip on a punch, meaning if you're both boxing the same stance, you know, both are orthodox, let's say, and you slip to your left side on a jab, you're slipping to the inside of it, right? If you slip to the outside, that's going to be slipping to your right. Slipping to the inside, though, allows you to get a follow-up punch quickly, and I've Very seldom, if ever, seen anyone pay for it in the way that people like to pretend like you pay for it if you slip to the inside of a jab. They say you're going to get nailed by a right hand. I don't see that very often. Sometimes it can open up an opportunity for someone to hit you with an uppercut on that side. I've seen that. And but again, if you have variety, you mix in the catch and things like that, and if you come back off of that slip, there's no problem, because that's what's important to remember with all this stuff is that if we just purely operate defensively and do defense, yeah, there's absolutely holes all the time, all day long for all these moves. But if you're using that defense to set up offense, then it's not so problematic. And again, we're focusing on minimizing and the most advantageous moves that we can do. All right, now, next one is a pull. So, and I don't actually have these quite in order of my tops. I'll kind of give you at the end of each one of these sections what are my tops. Obviously, the catch is my top for the jab. Everything else I'll list you through once we get to the bottom. All right, so, or all the way around the circle. The pull, being able to pull from a punch or from a jab with the chin down, of course, but it's a pullback of the torso. This allows you to be still in firing range to, again, launch off a punch after their punch. It allows you to truly know their range, right? You can be a little close, a little pull, and that can get you to understand right where the tip of the range is and allow you to do certain things based off of that. And maybe they start leaning in with their punches, and it allows you to also get counters off. You know, you're there for a moment, and that pull is faster than a foot step or anything else, and it's a very beneficial move. But when done wrong, very dangerous move, meaning keeping the chin up in the air and things like that. People will do that all day long, especially when they're a beginner, but even when they're more advanced, you want to make sure you stay defensively responsible by pulling the torso back and keeping the chin tucked as you do so, and also maybe coming back with the head offline. Then we have slip past and in. All right, so typically you do this more on the lead side, but you're slipping and stepping in at the same time. A great way to completely nullify a jab, because a double jab is not an answer for this move, because once you slip past and step in, now there's no more jabs. Excellent move. Then we have punch. Oh, yes. Defense. Wait, how did this get in here? Punching? That's not defense, right, Coach Keith? Like, so you give 5 ways to defend every punch. I'm giving you more than 5. Already I've given you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, this is the 5th one, but it's not really defense. We're going to do 3 more. But it is defense, actually, because if you are throwing a punch as someone is punching and getting out of the way of their punch, that is defense. You are technically defending the punch, all right? Or if you throw a punch at the same time another punch comes and it intercepts the punch, or deflects the punch rather, better said, then that is also defense. So when you, for instance, shoot a right hand, or 2, if you're the same stance, you're both orthodox, you shoot a right hand, that gets in the way of the jab, all right? If your mirror stance, right, southpaw versus orthodox, if you shoot a jab, that gets in the way literally of their jab, all right? Or you can slip and throw same time and cross over the jab, come up under the jab, shoot a 2 for the body, and just punch. So you're slipping and punching, bringing the head offline, and nailing them. Do not forget this. So often we would think defense and offense is 2 separate things. Defense and offense should be able to be tangled together in a beautiful mixture. All right. Then we have sidestep. Sidestep typically, you get to the right side or left side, rear side or lead side on the jab. Obviously, you step to your rear side. That sets you up for more of perhaps a counter or 2, or you could step with your jab to the rear side, same exact time, and have great benefit from that. Then you could also step to the lead side, come back with a jab or a hook, a lot of different punches, or step with a punch, but stepping to the side. So therefore, again, if you're only pulling, if you're only catching, if you're only slipping, you are kind of stuck right there in front of them. But if you're adding side steps into the mixture, then if they try to exploit any of those previous defenses, they're going to have problems. They're going to have to readjust their sights, and every time your opponent has to readjust their sights, that's time that is now added to your game and taken away from theirs. Then you have brush. So to be clear, I'm not big on paring down, and I'm not saying this is not a move that you don't want to do ever and it doesn't work. And I definitely have told people to do this and taught people how to do this. Parry down, come over the jab with the right hand. So, parry it down, boom. But the brush of brushing it to the side is a very good and underutilized move where you are moving that hand out of the way, because oftentimes that jab will end up being a barrier for us to get closer and do other things. And simply brushing it down, unless we're long enough or able to step in with our counter over the top, can be limiting. It's a great move, but it can't be limiting depending what your dimensions are. Everything I talk about, I try to talk about things that are going to be useful for all shapes and sizes and all levels. So brushing Now, typically, of course, this is one of those hard and fast rules where I say you do want to brush to the inside of the punch. Meaning, if someone, if you and I are boxing orthodox, I brush with my right arm, I'm going to brush the punch to my left, to the inside of your body, because that's going to throw you off balance for just a moment, control your waist for a little bit, so it's going to be hard to follow up with a rear hand punch, a right hand. But if I brush it down, then it's easy for you to come over that arm getting knocked down with a big right hand. And again, I can shoot my right hand over that brush down or parry down, but brushing to the inside. Then we have stepping out. So again, we talked about earlier about pulling, but also stepping, because that also allows you to manage range better, make someone want to lean in and step for you. And again, let's say if you're only pulling from punches, then if someone's educated, they're not going to shoot for the head anymore. They're just going to shoot down for the body, because they know you're going to pull and they know that your body will still be there. But if you're stepping out here and there, then they don't know if it's pull or a step out or whatever, and now you're ahead of the game. Then last one, we have slip to the outside. So slipping, if we're orthodox, we're slipping to our right side, letting it go past our left ear. And this allows us to, we could punch same time as this, do a jab and slip to the outside easily. Or after that slip, we come back with that classic 2 over the top. Great move. Think about if you're boxing opposite stance fighters, they're shooting their rear hand, you're slipping that to the outside. Of course, now we're talking about defending against a 2, and you counter back. Now, my hierarchy of the moves that are going to be the most advantageous for you, I try to put everything in here that is something that I would have someone work on. But what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 ways to defend a jab. The top, catching. Slipping to the inside and the outside, mixing that in, very important. Stepping out. And depending what your dimensions are, either slipping in if you're a little bit shorter or mixing in a pull and a step out. But even a step out as a shorter person can be beneficial. And the brush is a good utilization tool if someone is kind of stiff-arming you and posting you. All right, let's go on to the next one. Number 2, we're going to talk about the 2, right? Some people call it the cross. And in my own world of how I was brought up with coaching, you have to be crossing over something. So that's a specific type of punch, crossing over a certain punch, the jab. So, but the 2, the rear straight. First off, if you both are in the same exact stance, you're going to be blocking. And hey, guys, to be clear, if we're opposite stances, everything applies just opposite with the 1 and the 2. Meaning, everything I talked about with the jab is what you can do to a southpaw with their straight left hand. All right, so I'm orthodox, right? So therefore, my lead and my 1 is my left, my rear is my right. If I'm boxing a southpaw, that's just flipped. So therefore, their straight left hand is like a jab. Everything I can do to counter that jab can be utilized and should be utilized. So make sure you do that. Make sure you understand that, because it's really helpful to be able to catch a southpaw too and jab same time and do these different moves. Very important. All right, first, number 1, assuming you guys are both in the same stance, block. Blocking with the lead hand. That's what we talk about, keeping that lead hand up. So important. It is important. Now, again, we see plenty of fighters, and if you're a boxer and you know anything about boxing, you know which hand is typically going to be higher. It's not going to be your lead hand. It's going to be your rear hand, because the rear hand is majority of the defense and the lead hand is majority of the offense. And also the lead hand up too much tends to blind your vision. But we're going to block with that lead hand because that's on that side. Easiest to do. Very easy move to do. Make sure as you do it, you resist. Now, with the way boxing's evolved, with helmets and things like that, and the way training is too, it's easier and easier and easier and easier to block a punch by just putting your hand on your helmet, right? Because you got 2 cushion factors there. You got the cushion of the glove, cushion of the helmet that creates those shock absorbers to block a punch. But think about it. If you got small gloves on and you have your hand on your head and someone throws a big 2 at you, it's still going to give you a little rattling and things like that. So be able to resist off the face is very important. And to train that, no matter if you have a helmet on or not, because the ideal is for us to all get ready for the pinnacle of the sport, which is professional boxing. All right, then we have the catch. A lot of people don't know this, don't realize this. You can absolutely catch a 2 from a same stance fighter and from an opposite stance fighter as well. But catching that too. Now, I know you might be thinking, oh, well, you're crossing over. No, you don't got to cross over that much, especially if you're sided up. And the alleyway for the 2 is very similar, unless there's like a loop to it, to a jab. It's a very similar pathway. And being able to catch allows you to counter with a left hook. There's a lot of great examples of this. And it opens up a myriad of options, and also makes your life simpler, because then you can stop a 1 and a 2 with one hand instead of trying to do a whole mix and match with two different hands. Then you have pull, obviously pulling from a 2 and coming back with your own 2, things of that nature, as I mentioned before with the jab. Then slip in and pass, right? Slipping typically to the inside, but you can slip to the, or excuse me, typically slipping to the outside, but you can also slip to the inside. The danger of slipping to the inside of a 2 is that people do sometimes loop it and kind of trail it down as they throw it. So therefore, if you slip to the inside of it and just stay there, you can get caught by it because it's kind of already in that pathway. Think about when people hold mitts, they hold like typically, I don't do this that much, but a left pad for the left punch and a right pad for the right punch. So people are already programmed to shoot their left over to the side and their right over to the other side. So you're kind of just running over to that side, which can make it problematic, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't and couldn't do it. It is a great thing to do, especially if you're mixing in a step in as you do it that smothers inside. So therefore the arc, as it arcs down, you're inside of the arc, right? Think about a waterfall. You're getting past the water spill and under the waterfall. All right, then we could punch. We could just simply slip and throw our own 2 as they shoot a 2, or slip and shoot a jab if they're an opposite stance fighter, and that's it. Easy peasy. Then sidestepping, typically stepping to the lead side, to the outside of the punch, but you can also step to the inside of the punch, but just obviously be defensively responsible, be intelligent, keep your chin down, things like that. But it can make that punch trail a little bit. Think about the simple adage of if you're boxing someone that has a very strong rear hand, if you move away from it, you're sidestepping to that side, and it's adding more time to the punch and making it a little bit awkward for them to throw it. But also stepping into it, into the side of it, allows you to get past it. Brushing it, good move to do. You would do this if you're in the same stance with your lead hand. Brushing it to the inside, throwing them off of balance, and allowing you to come back with your own counter right hand or right uppercut. Going on to the next one. Then shoulder rolling. Again, this will work if you're in the same stance. If you're not in the same stance, don't do this because the amount that your shoulder has to come across the body is too much. But we're a same stance fighter. It's already coming on that left side a little bit, or lead side. So therefore, you put that shoulder in the way a little bit. It gets in the way. It's a beautiful way to mix up the defense. Now, of course, if you only shoulder roll, then people can start shooting it higher and arcing over and things like that. But it is a very, 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 very useful move because also, like I talked about earlier with the block move, the block can be a little bit obstructive of your vision. Yeah, it's hard to see around that hand that's up there blocking that punch versus a shoulder roll. You can see quite a bit, and that's one of the benefits to it. Then we have the step out, obviously, just stepping out of it. Need I say more about it? Then you have slipping to the outside of the punch, which I touched on earlier. My top ones that I'm going to recommend for you to focus on with the 2 is to block it, to catch it, and to slip to the outside of it. And then maybe perhaps mixing in a shoulder roll and a brush here and there. Those moves, but utilize the whole platter of options. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 ways to give you right here to stop the right hand or the 2. If you mix all of these in, gang, think about it. They're not going to be able to set traps for you. If we only block a punch a certain way, like let's say you block it, for instance, or defend a punch a certain way. Let's say you are always blocking the 2. An easy answer for that is next time the person wants to make you think a 2 is coming, they're going to turn that into a rear hook and arc around the block. All right. Now, going on to the number 3. My favorite punch when I boxed, the lead hook. So if you're orthodox, left hook. All right. First, we got our block. So if you're both same stance, you're blocking with that rear hand. Again, off the face, staying sided up. If you square up with the hook, again, I'm not going to say you're going to get killed all the time, but squaring up as you block the hook allows for the completely natural follow-up for a hook, which is a 2. So think about 3-2, right? Lead hook, straight rear hand. A left hook, straight right hand. It opens you up for it. So unless you're looking to counter with your own hook, I recommend don't open up for it. Be able to just block it without moving the torso and bringing the arm away from the body enough to resist it so it doesn't slam into your own face. All right, now, next one is to dip it. When I say dip, what I mean bob. Not bob the guy, I mean bobbing down. Think about when you go fishing, you have a bobber and it goes underwater. That type of quick bloop, bloop, motion like that is what you want to do on that hook. And allows you to throw any counter after that. Off of that dip or bob, you can do anything you want. All right, then we can pull from it. When someone shoots a big left hook or a lead hook, you can pull from it and counter back quickly with a jab or a right hand too, if you're either stance. And because that punch, when you miss a hook, most of the time costs more time. But make sure you stick to those good rules and fundamentals I talk about countering. Watch my countering video if you haven't already, where I go through all these different counters and I talk about timings and things like that. We make sure to do the one and timing, not 1, 2, but 1 and right in between. So we make sure we don't try to throw same time as someone unless we're intending to. But if we want to counter, typically make someone miss, make them pay. We want to make them miss and make them pay before they're able to come back with the follow-up defensive move or the follow-up punch. Then angle under, which means bobbing or dipping under and stepping into the hook as you do so. So think about it. You and I are both boxing. We're both orthodox. I shoot a left hook at you. You dip under and step to your right side, which is also going to now add time to my follow-up punch if I decide to come back with the right hand, and allows you to get off what you want or just control the action, make space, and buy yourself time. Now, next one we have punch, right? So they do a left hook or a lead hook. You can hook with them. If let's talk about opposite stance, right? I'm orthodox, you're a southpaw. I'm wide with my lead hooks. If you do a sharp right hook inside of my left hook, you can catch me clean. It's a great thing to do against opposite stances. Great stuff. Also, you can beat a left hook with the right hand. Again, referring back to my countering video. Do not underestimate the importance of learning how to punch as someone punches, because that is when they are typically the most open. All right, you can smother it, step inside of it. So think about it. If we're pulling it, dipping under it, punching with it, blocking it. If sometimes we mix in smothering inside of it and it wraps around the back of our head, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Shuts them down. And then if they try to adjust to that, then it plays into all the other moves we're trying to do and keeps us ahead of the game. Because if you're always leaning back or stepping out of hooks, then someone knows they just need to reach a little bit further to grab you, to get you, and they'll get you. Then you have the step out. So again, two things to incorporate together very much is stepping out and smothering in. If you're always smothering in, people can adjust for it. If you're always stepping out, people can adjust for it. But if just mixing that in between adds that 50-50 chance of they don't know whether you're going to be stepping out, stepping in, and that little bit of uncertainty is very helpful, especially when you're working off of it. All right, and then the last one I have here is weaving. So quote unquote rolling under the hook. Great move to do that allows you to. Now, what's the benefit of it? And what's the difference between the bob or the dip and the weave, right? Because it looks like I'm doing the same. I'm saying this, do the same thing twice here, right? And I'm just cheating, right? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 defenses for the lead hook. There's more. There's more. Don't you worry. There's more. But I'd recommend focus on these. I'll tell you which are my top ones out of these. You might already get the idea. But weaving means your head is, if we're orthodox and orthodox, as that hook is coming around my right side, I'm going to weave to my left, which means fade off or slip off to my left side as I roll under the punch, creating a U-type shape or a circle really type shape with my head. And this allows me to get a little bit away from the hook as I start to go under. It's a great way to deal, because if I dip straight down, I have to rely and ensure that I dip quick enough to get out of the way of the hook. But if I'm fading away from the hook as it's coming and then using that to roll under or weave under, that is very beneficial. And then it also can set you up for big power shots. And also as well, if we're opposite stance fighters rather, you shoot that big lead hook at me, I can weave under and load up my big lead hook off of that. All right, top ones off of here: the block, the dip, the weave, the step out, the smother, and the punch. Those are my top ones that I'm going to say you need to focus on. But incorporate all of this, because again, 8 things. I said you got 5, but I'm giving you more. So therefore, you can experiment with all these. Remember, while you're experimenting with all these, keep track. Keep track of what works, what doesn't work, why it doesn't work. Maybe it just takes more repetitions, more drilling, things like that. While you're doing defense, have someone throw specific punches at you and work on all these different defensive reactions to it. Drillers make killers, guys. You're not just going to get great only by sparring. You can, but this will help fast track you. Next punch, going on to the 4. This is where, when I started numbering punches, because the way I was coached was not to number punches. It was a jab, right hand, left hook, this, that, and the other thing. This is where you get some debate. The old school boxing coaches that do number punches, the 4 is the rear uppercut. If you're orthodox, right uppercut, and if you're southpaw, left uppercut. And that's how we do our system too. And why is that? I'll tell you later. All right, I'll tell you at the end of the video when we get to 6. Okay, but let's talk about the rear uppercut. All right, so first one is to catch it. Yep, right under your chin, off the chin though, a couple inches ideally. And again, it's all a hierarchy, right? What would you rather? What would I rather for me, right? Would it be to get hit by a punch completely clean, or to block a punch or catch a punch while my hand is on my jaw, or to catch or block it with my hand off of my face. Obviously, the worst is to get hit clean. Second worst is to get hit while you still take off a little bit off of it. And then the absolute optimum is your head doesn't even get moved at all or rattled at all or hurt at all because you're a couple inches off the face, right? It allows you for more control. Make sure you keep your elbow in as you catch, specifically the uppercut, because it opens up your body, but then also is less strong. All right, now we can block it. What does that mean? Block it? Like, it's kind of a weird idea with an uppercut. But if you stay sided up, if you're both in the same stance and you stay sided up, that lead arm is going to block it and can block it. All right. And again, same things work just in mirror fashion with southpaws. Now, we can spike it, which means take that elbow, bring it a little bit out, get in the pathway of the uppercut. So for both orthodox, it's going to be my lead elbow that's going to spike it. If we're, opposite stances, my rear elbow is going to spike it. Get that in the pathway of your jaw and of where it's going for. And if they're coming up under it all, you can rail them right into spiking that elbow, and that will make them not want to throw it. It's going to hit the medium nerve or hit the knuckle. Either way, it's a bad time for them, good time for you. Hard one to drill because you're going to rip up your partners, but great one to do. Punch, right? So you see them coming up under with that punch, shoot over the top. Sorry for giving a non-boxing example, but I remember, I think it was Chuck Liddell versus Rashad Evans, I think it was, back when I actually followed MMA, back in the day, back in the 2000s. And he nailed him, Chuck Liddell, while Chuck Liddell was throwing a big uppercut, coming low, just leading with it, came over the top. And so easy one to counter when your eyes are sharp or if your opponent's sloppy. Pull. So pulling from it, again, keep the chin down, but that's a real nice answer for that uppercut, is to pull out. Then while they're following through with the uppercut, you come back with your two. Great counter. Then you have slipping. Yes, you can slip uppercuts because think about it, your head's coming off line, that uppercut's coming up. So as long as the head is off the line, you are out of the way of anything coming in straight or up. You're just not out of the way of anything coming side to side unless you drop levels. Great one to do. Don't underestimate it. Slip typically to the outside of the uppercut so we don't get in the pathway of it too much, and counter as you would expect. Just make sure you don't do this too much, or if someone's mixing in good shovel shots and uppercuts to your body, be careful with this move. Then stepping out. Super great, safe move to do. The only limitation is it can limit your counter availability. So that's the only thing to consider with that. So my top ones out of this are catch, spike it, punch, and really, that's my top ones, man. Catch, spike, punch. Because a lot of times when you get hit by uppercuts, you're in certain situations. I'm going to mix in a pull there. Mix in a pull here. Okay? Because even if you're leading in with your head by accident a little bit, you're mixing that little pull here and there, that allows a little bit of uncertainty for if your head's going to be there for them to punch you, even if you are having your head a little bit over your lead leg. Now, going on to number 5, the lead uppercut. Now, catching it. Again, there's a theory or a theme here. Catching, right? Is this like all about Pokemon? I guess it is, but I don't like Pokemon. But I'm all about catching them all as much as we can. We can't catch hooks, right? And you can. You could make an argument for this. This is an art form. You can make an argument for any random nonsense. But catching straights, catching uppercuts, easy peasy, makes your life simple. Everything coming up the middle or straight, you can catch that stuff. So that's number 1. Then we have blocking. Again, similar to what I talked about with the rear uppercut. Spiking, similar to what I talked about there, or exactly the same. Punching, same type of concept. You can shoot that right hand over the top of that lead uppercut, specifically if someone is shooting it as a lead, which can be the danger of it, which is why, not that you can't ever lead with an uppercut, but you don't want to make a habit of it. And if you do, you want to keep your chin down. All right? Now, pulling from it, again, like we talked about it, slipping to the outside of it, and stepping out of it, right? So similar type of stuff because it's coming in this similar pathways. What changes is sometimes your countering abilities or countering availability. So if someone shoots a lead uppercut, you might not have the left hook counter, but if you shoot a rear uppercut and you guys are the same stance, right? We're both orthodox. You shoot a right uppercut, I catch it with my right hand, come back with a big left hook. That is very available most of the time. Versus if they're shooting their lead uppercut, left uppercut, it's not quite the same situation. All right. Then moving on to the 6. Now, why is the 6 the rear hook in this number system that we use? Well, because the 6, the rear hook, is the only punch I've had to ban from people. Why have I had to ban it from people? Why, Coach Keith? It's so strong. It's so powerful. If you're a newer boxer, you're like, I like to throw it, and I feel like I hurt people when I do. Well, I'll tell you why. Because I've had guys and gals both that would be way too happy to throw it. And the challenge is when you throw that punch, it's the slowest punch out of all of the punches. It's coming from the furthest away. It's going to take the most time, okay? I just said slow in 3 different ways. But you get what I'm saying. It also leaves you the most open when you throw it because it's typically more wide and more powerful. Now, of course, there's a risk and reward trade-off, right? Everything in life is trade-offs. So you can generate power with it, absolutely. But think about it. If you guys are both in the same stance and you're shooting a rear hook, there's a lot more things that interfere with that rear hook. The shoulders of your opponent, the arm of your opponent, the way the torso is sided up and things like that make it more difficult. If someone's square, yes, things are more open. And if things are southpaw, yes, things are more open. But orthodox and orthodox, the rear hook has less opportunities and availability. Will it not work? Will it not help you? Yes, it can. It can. But if you make a habit of going 1-1 right hook or 1 right hook or right hook, it's not going to be as beneficial of a counter. It's not going to be as beneficial of a lead punch. It's not going to be as beneficial as a punch to follow a jab or a couple jabs. Take my word for it. If you don't already know this already, guys. There are some boxing coaches that won't even teach a rear hook because of this. Obviously, we should teach it. We should know it. It's important. It's helpful. All punches are great, but it's the last on the list for this reason. Let's talk about defending it. All right, so first you have blocking it. Coming around, if we're both in the same stance, the lead side, you got to come off your face, because if you don't come off your face, you have to square up to stop it from coming around. So if you come off the face, it can end up hitting the forearm more and stopping the punch. Now, dipping it, just like we talked about with the hook, pulling it, it's a big wind-up shot, so therefore you can pull out of it and come back with your own rear hand or rear uppercut. You can also shoot a left hook inside of it for both, same stance. And then you can angle under it, stepping into it and under it. That's going to buy you time, take off time of their follow-up, no matter how good the technique is. You punch, and this is one of the challenges with it, is someone starts to shoot that big shot, you just stick them with a very, very, very hard jab or a 1-2 right down the pipe on the chin. It's going to shut down a lot of that. Because think about it, if I control your head, I control your body. If I snap your head up, it's a good time. Then we have smother. So stepping inside of it. And this is, again, one of the reasons why hooks in general, but also the rear hook, because it's so slow, can be problematic. It takes a lot of time so someone can step into it, and it's very range dependent. They can step out of it, right? They can step away from it more easily than a straight rear hand. Versus if I try to step into a straight rear hand and I don't take my head off line, I'll get hit by it. If I try to pull away from it a little bit, you can still kind of follow me with it. But with that hook, it has a very specific way it can land, and easy to deal with once you know how to deal with it. Stepping out of it, of course, and then weaving under it that allows you to gear yourself up for power. The dip allows you to throw any punch, but the weave really cranks you, but also buys you a little bit of time. Because think about that rear, if we're both orthodox, that rear hook is coming for me, I fade off to my right side as I roll under. That buys me a little bit of time to get away from that sucker, even though it is slow as molasses. Come up under and load me up for a big punch. Top moves I would suggest to do against someone who's doing rear hooks: punch with it, block it, and mixing in the pull or the step out, because that just will buy you so much time and cost them so much energy. It's probably the most energy expensive punch, if I dare say so myself. All right, guys. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure you click like, subscribe. Also, I have my coaching programs out there. I have custom elite level program that we will work out so that I will follow along with you and build out a complete structured plan that you need to be successful. You also have 4-week programs that I have that you can be a part of as well for a smaller cost up front. All right, guys, so make sure you check out those options by clicking on that. Also, consider buying me a cup of coffee, because it really helps support the channel, and consider becoming a channel member, because it gives you even more content than this, guys. See you on the next video.